Okay, here's a review for my Hobbyzone Super Cub with clipped wing, brushless motor, wheel upgrades, and ailerons. As you can see, the wing is now flat. And actually, now that it's been sitting on the center of the plane for a while, it does have a little bit of a reverse, I guess you call it negative dehedral. But actually, when it's up in the air, the wings flex up a little bit, and then the supports under the wing actually will just hold it to where it's perfectly straight while it's flying. So it actually works out perfect. Anyways, as you can see, I have a brushless motor. That is a one that I got from Hobby Parts called the Optima. It's the Exceed RC. It's the Optima 450 1050 kV. The thing runs at 152 watts. And it does just fine with a 30 amp ESC, and you can still continue to use your regular 1300 milliamp per hour batteries that came with the Super Cub. They work just beautifully with it. They don't even get warm, maybe just slightly warm to the touch, but that's if you're flying it really hard. And take a look around here. You can see the ailerons that were added onto each wing. My cutting skills were not that great. My X-Acto knife was a little bit dull, so you can kind of see they weren't perfect cuts, but they were clean enough. And my tail had kind of seen better days, so what I did is I added some little bit carbon rods in the tail to give it a little bit of strength. And my dog agrees with that. You see where I added the carbon rods. I'd make a little slit into the actual plastic covering on the tail, put the carbon rod in there, and then C8 it into place. And then I added a couple of carbon rods right here that go right into the body and then just go right underneath the tail there. And they're all glued with CA, so it should help keep the tail stiffer. So there's a lot more. It's a lot stiffer at the tail now than it was by stock. You can see I'm pretty much moving the whole plane as I move the tail. Before it was kind of flimsy. And the wings actually have a carbon, I'm sorry, not carbon, but they have bamboo in them. So if we take the plane and we flip it over, you can see there's a bamboo rod right here that runs across, and that runs all the way across to this side. That was basically the same kind of method I did with the tail with the carbon rods. I made a nice slit with an X-Acto knife, pushed a, basically it's a bamboo skewer. You can get it at any grocery store. I got mine from a local Korean market. You can get 24 of them for $1.99, and they're very strong. And basically just inserted the bamboo skewer in there and coated it with CA, and then after it dried I covered it with a fiber packing tape that's really strong. These are just the wires for the servos here, and the wires were the servos are basically stuck in there with two-sided foam tape. However, on one side of the foam tape, the part that actually that sticks to the airplane, I put some CA on there too, so they're in there really stiff right now. So really the only weak spot is the adhesive on the two-sided tape that's sticking to the servo, but that actually has a really good adhesion to the servo, so we're good on that. And I got these little rods right here. I got those from Park Zone. Those are the ones that actually come on the Wildcat like this. Same kind of model as that. And so I got those rods from Park Zone. The actual servers are from Hobby King. They're the HXT 900s. One thing of note is these here, the support struts. I basically just cut them and made them so they would fit nice and snug, so that when the wings were perfectly flat they would be tight. And what I did is I cut them, and then I put a heat shrink tubing around all the pieces and put CA inside, and a few drops of CA, and then shrunk the tubing, and that makes them really strong. They are as good as new, and actually I like them better because they kind of fuse down really low here and make a nice thick piece all the way to that point. and to me it just seems like it's a stronger hold actually. Alright, let's go take a look inside the plane. You can kind of see what I did with that too. Okay, so let's take a look inside here. I already got the rubber bands off. As you can see, I had to use a Y cable for attaching the ailerons. So basically the servo wires only came to about the middle there, and then you need a Y extension to take it all the way down to where the receiver is. And I just used a orange receiver. It's an orange Spectrum 6-channel. I say Spectrum, but it's not actually made by Spectrum. You get them at Hobby King, and it supports all Spectrum radios. And then right there you can see I have a Exceed RC electronic speed control. Let's see if I can get a little closer on that without losing my wing here. Actually, let's see if I can just lay the wing to the side. There we go. There's my speed controller, Exceed RC. I know it's upside down, but they call it the Volcano series, 30 amp. And I just used the regular Park Zone servos that came with the plane as far as for the rudder and elevator. You can see right here a big hole where the electronic speed control, the wires go through. And I basically, if you can see deep in there, I took my soldering iron and I just kind of gouged out a little bit of foam to make a nice hole there so that the hole from the motor will feed cool air all the way through there and cool off the ESC as well. And it also helps to cool the battery because the battery compartment is just below the ESC. And speaking of the motor, if you look at, I know my cowling's a little banged up there. I've had this cowling for a while now, but the motor, I had to actually cut a big hole in the cowling because the motor stuck out just enough to where it rubbed against the cowling. So I just basically just cut a big hole in the cowling, and I think it's actually better anyway, so the motor gets better cooling. Alright, so that's it for the plane. We have about 7 inches shorter of a wing. It's flat. We have a brushless power system that's running on a 450 Exceed RC Optima motor at 1050 kV. The electronic speed control is 30 amp, and you can still continue to use your 1300 milliamp per hour batteries that came with the plane, or you can opt to go bigger. Tomorrow I'll show you how this thing flies, so we'll have some video coming up with this thing flying, and I think most of you will be pretty impressed with the aerobic quality and the performance of this plane.